Of course, when you hear the bell tolling, you know you bang on time for the Leadership Forum here on Live. It is Friday, the 7th of September 2018. And of course, also in studio with us is Dr. Vincent Ogutu, who is the Vice Chancellor of Strathmore University. We shall be discussing on a very interesting topic, truly. It's not really a topic as such, but maybe a tagline that we should peg our thoughts on, right? How do you deal with life's interruptions, especially as a leader, right? Right now, we know the biggest story is about Nike and the controversial advertisement that is out there that has really drawn a lot of flack from every which way. And it is, you know, having some nuances of racism. And this has really drawn a lot of flack from every quarter of the United States as well. So if you are thrown such a curveball when you're a company, how do you deal with that? That is sort of an interruption. How will it adversely affect also your bottom line as well? The same has been happening to Starbucks. Here in the country, we have also our own issues as well. But in our own personal lives, we have everything streamlined, projected, and they always say life is not a straight line. It zigs and zags, flips and flops. So there are always curveballs that are thrown along the way. So how do we deal with those, right, Dr. Vincent? Maybe your sentiment before we move on further.
Sure. Somebody was asking me, how does this topic relate to leadership?
Yes.
Well, leadership is not just about leading other people. It's also about leading yourself. Mm-hmm. It's always about getting to some goals that you've set for yourself, a vision that you've created that you want to get to really badly. And then how do you get there, and leading yourself or leading others to that goal. So if you have this vision you've painted, you had a clear path, and then something interrupts it, mm-hmm. you feel like it's lost, mm-hmm. like I've lost it, what can I do?
Yes.
So leadership in this case would be, how do I get myself out of that hole and get myself back on track? Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at that today and see how to deal with these interruptions, how to not let them fully finish you. And I look at it as being down, but not out.
Yeah, being down, but not out. Definitely, I think that is really aptly fitting on what we'll be discussing this morning. So that will be our topic today. We want to hear you also commenting. You can cross over to our Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. Also, AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. So where are you stuck? And how can you get out from that situation that you're in, right? Maybe you've lost your job, maybe you've lost your partner, maybe also you've lost your house, right? And you're feeling, how do I deal with this interruption? Which is a way forward? And you're feeling you're down in the dumps. This is a show for you, a pick-me-up this morning, just to encourage you, right? We know that life sometimes can really batter someone, and you feel like you're really, backed up to the wall. You don't know where to turn. But we're here to encourage you this morning that all is not lost. You get encouraged because there's light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, the good book says, the path of the righteous man is like the first gleam of the dawn. The first gleam of the dawn, that it groweth brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter into a perfect day. And that's what we pray for you. That is from Proverbs chapter 4, verse 18. The path of the righteous man is like the first gleam of the dawn. It groweth brighter and brighter and to a perfect day. So we expect also that you'll be having a perfect day after listening to what our panelists will be talking to us about dealing with life's interruption. But before we move further, let's see what we have in our dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation, of course, doggedly following the story that has been, of course, the main fixture in the media. Obado and Sharon, murder plot thickens. Governor goes off radar as detectives piece together the web of relationships between journalist, pregnant student, a powerful politician, and a fixer. This story continues on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation today. Revelations of Sharon trip to Nairobi in futile bid to meet evasive governor. And also, still on the front page of the Daily Nation, running on empty, transport crises. Bungoma Court yesterday halted the new tax on fuel products. What's the effect on the market? That's their burning question. And you have that story continuing on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. And you can see a picture here. The caption reads, motorists queue for fuel in Buruburu, Nairobi yesterday as a shortage of petroleum products precipitated by the Treasury's introduction of 16% VAT on fuel commodities, hit various parts of the country. Also, Elachi, the drama and sideshows. Minutes after her shock ouster as Nairobi County Assembly Speaker yesterday, a court ordered that she remains in office. This story is well fleshed out for you on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Even if she does remain in office, when we have this swath of also MCAs who are against you, how will you be able to conduct that business in the House? That will be extremely difficult for her, but we'll see how this pans out. You can follow the story where you have the gritty details on page 6 of the Daily Nation today. Also, now NAT fights TAC circulars. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation today. Sosion wants teachers, employer and Sosion, he wants teachers, employer to withdraw guidelines, it says. You can follow that story at the back page of the Daily Nation. Also, you follow that story on City Edition inside the Daily Nation today on page 4 or page 54 of the Daily Nation. I'm avoiding to read that particular name. Sometimes they're crack jaws for me. I might just read it not the right way. But you can follow that story on page 54 of the Daily Nation today. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Standard. And this is your splash this morning. Ray of hope on fuel prices as Rotich yields. And we have a bite from him. He says, quote unquote, we've held discussions with the leadership of Parliament and we will have more engagements to find a solution soon. That is, of course, the closed-door meeting that they had yesterday. And we'll give you also the details of this inside our news bulletin this morning. And this is how it looked, right? That is just a panoramic view of how people were straining out the leash to get to petrol stations yesterday. Vehicles queue for fuel at Kenol petrol station on Koinange Street in Nairobi, causing a heavy traffic jam. Also, we can see Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, Finance Committee Chairman Joseph Limo, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi, and Majority Leader Eden Duale addressing the media after their meeting of the controversial finance bill at Parliament buildings yesterday. You can follow this story inside the Standard on page 6 today. As Kenyans wait to Uhuru's return from China with hopes he'll veto new fuel tax, Treasury CSN signaled that nightmare of skyrocketing prices may be dealt with, but not reversed altogether. This story continues on page 6 of the Standard this morning. Also, Chinese behind monkey slur on Uhuru deported. It's all about racism, and you can see his picture here. Turns out Chinese man captured on camera calling Kenyans, including Uhuru, monkeys, had been punished and made to apologize, according to remorseful Chinese embassy. Of course, they've been really trying hard to cover this in light of what also revelations that we had before of how they're treating Kenya employers. And this is it again. So he was deported. Also, we shall just show you an editorial cartoon that has been drawn by Victor in this regard as well. Let's move on and to see what we have on the front page of the Star. Judge stops VAT as Kenyans ask, where is Uhuru? Mystery of president's silence and whereabouts persist as top government officials meet to find a solution to the crisis over 16% VAT on fuel. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Also, angry Nairobi MCAs impeached Speaker Elachi over EACC. But of course, you know the new development on this. Not even as NASA leader Raila Odinga's phone call could save Nairobi Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi from the wrath of the MCAs. She was impeached yesterday after 103 MCAs voted to remove her from office. They accuse her of unilaterally appointing accounting officers without consulting the board and falling prey to Nigerian scammers. And this story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. And of course, she's sought for a court injunction on this. That is the latest development that we have as far as the case is concerned. Bomas can't account for 2.1 billion shillings and property. The Bomas of Kenya does not have ownership documents for its land and cannot account for property worth 2.1 billion shillings. The Auditor General has observed. You can follow the story on page 8 of the Star this morning. Now issues strike threat ahead of meet with TAC is another story inside the Star this morning. Let's move on. We see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. And this is your splash today. What is happening? Then you have your ellipsis there, or alama ya dukuduku. They say the last message, I should say, Slen Sharon is alleged to have sent Governor Bado on phone after sensing danger in the hands of strangers the day she was abducted. This story continues on page 4 of the People Daily today. And also, top state officials meet as court suspends fuel levy. This is on page 17, the Business Hub. Elachi impeached over abuse of office claims, but she's back in office right now, right, because of the court's intervention. You can follow the story on page 5 of the People Daily. Let's move on and to see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. Utata mafuta yakikauka, it says. That is the splash, and it continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Also, we have the Business Daily for you, and this is your splash today on the front page of the Business Daily. Banks raking 58.6 billion shillings net profit in 6 months. Half-year data shows lenders' income level match those before rate cap. So they've not been really adversely affected by the rate cap as well. Kenyan's banks collectively earned 58.6 billion shillings net profit in the 6 months between January and end of June, posting a 12.7% growth in defiance of a 2-year interest rate cap that limits margins chargeable on customer loans. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Also, Laikipia contractors file 700 million shillings fake claims. Laikipia County contractors are seeking payment of up to 700 million shillings based on fake bills. Governor Nderitu Murithi told the Senate yesterday. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Of course, this story is well fleshed out for you. It goes back to the previous regime, where also we have the governors who are facing the Senate Committee. Treasury rejects petrol tax order. Kenyans were by last evening yet to enjoy a reduction of fuel prices ordered by the High Court as Treasury Secretary. Henry Rotich remains reluctant to act on the ruling delivered in Bungoma. And you have this story continuing on page 4 of the Business Daily as well. And this is how it was. You can see also motorists here queuing at petrol stations still in Buruburu yesterday. A shortage was reported across the country following implementation of a 16% VAT on fuel. We want to show you also what we have on the ticker there. Western counties woo investors to tap Lake Victoria. And we can see here governors in Nyanza and Western region positioning it themselves to exploit the Lake Victoria for the benefit of the residents. And 1.2 billion shillings, that is the amount that a Centum affiliated farm sank in 2 failed geothermal wells in Naivasha. EU banks on last-minute Brexit deal on or by November, it says. This is a story that you want to follow also inside the Business Daily. Moody's cautions Kenya on its debt pileup. Kenya's credit rating will come under downward pressure if it hit the maximum public debt level of 74% of the gross domestic product, a Moody's analyst says, and you can follow this story on page 19 of the Business Daily today. We cross over now to Tanzania, where we have the Citizen for you, and this is your splash today. If you're waking up in Tanzania, pension savings can now secure you a home loan. Good news there. New regulations allow pension schemes to enter into agreement with the commercial banks for the provision of mortgage to members. You can follow this story on page 2 of The Citizen. Also, Lisu says he misses home, promises to come back. Political firebrand has been receiving treatment out of the country for almost 1 year after he was shot and seriously wounded in Dodoma last September. Also, PCCB debate holds up as John Pombe Magufuli removes anti-graft czar. You can follow that story on page 2. Also, we can see here pupils honestly praying there. A teacher at Victoria Primary School in Dar es Salaam, Mr. Omar Bakari, and Standard 7 finalists bid farewell to one another after this year's primary school leaving. Examination ended yesterday. Nearly 1 million candidates nationwide were expected to tackle the 2-day test. All right, he's being a bit farewell there by the students. Actually, I thought they were praying, but you can follow that story also inside The Citizen as well. Let's see what we have on the front page of Mwananchi. Mwaka moja wa Tundu Lissu nje ya bunge, and you have his story on page 2 of Mwananchi today. We cross over now to Uganda, where you have the Daily Monitor in Uganda, and this is what you're waking up to. Daily Monitor in Uganda. There you go. Ministries fight over 22,000 teachers' jobs. Bone of contention, Education Ministry wants finance to reconsider their wage bill and allow them to recruit 22,000 primary school teachers across the country. And you can see also a standalone picture here, Museveni, China's Xi holding talks. Of course, there we have also the First Lady Janet Museveni as well. You can follow this story inside the Daily Monitor in Uganda. I want to show you, lastly, what we do have also on the front page of the magazines that we have this month on your newsstand. Nairobi Business Monthly looks like this, and they're turning their focus on Makueni, the ascendant Makueni. Makueni rising, testimony of the power of people-centered development. You can read all the details of this, how they're doing it inside the Nairobi Business Monthly, the September issue. Also, we have the Nairobi Law Monthly as well. Taking no prisoners, it says. You can grab a copy for yourself as well. Exclusive interview with DCI George Kinoti, Uhuru's graft gladiators talks about the honor of public office, his mission, work ethic, and thoughts on threats to the Kenyan state. That is all in the Nairobi Business Monthly. The Wall Street Journal as well is here, and I can show you just a bit of that. But before I head there, we have also the East African for you. This week has been holding this particular splash for you. Chinese takeaway. What will EAC order this time? That it was the abiding question. Africa Summit leaders in Beijing looking for funds for infrastructure, and you can read all the details and what they wanted from this particular summit that was in Beijing. Don't bet on getting a loan. Lenders are seeking to cut default rates and improve customer behavior analysis. This story continues on page 35 of the East African. Kenya Finance CS defies MPs on new levy raises cost of fuel. This was at the beginning of the week, but of course we know the latest development as well right now with the court's intervention. But despite the fact that we have this intervention as well, Rotich is not flinching. That is a story that you want to follow on page 35, also inside the East African this week. The Wall Street Journal, let me try and lift it up for you quickly. And this is what we do have. Let me try and do it quickly for you so that you can see what it holds for you. So there you go. Court nominee pledges fairness. Kavanaugh scuts senators' queries on presidential pardons, subpoenas at hearing, and also Sessions vows to examine stifling by social media. That is a story that you want to follow also inside the Wall Street Journal. Fast internet costing pennies, promises to transform India. You can read about Mukesh Ambani's 4G network bringing millions online for the first time. Airlines beat summer's storms as well. You can read all this in the Wall Street Journal. Big health deals near antitrust approval is another story inside the Wall Street Journal. Just also to show you the business segment of it. Of course, it's all about business, but this is business and finance. FBI probes American Express. Find out why. Investigation is focusing on pricing practices of firm's foreign exchange unit. Also, CBS tries to settle feud over control. Indonesia acts to buttress currency as stock market suffers worst day in years. And buyer tallies up more weed killer lawsuits. And J Crew, it says, warms up to Amazon sales. You can find all this story inside the Wall Street Journal as well. Those are your dailies. I got two cartoons today. Let's see what they hold for us. This is what Victor has drawn this morning. Africans through racist eyes. Of course, this is the controversy with the deportation of the Chinese who had some racial slurs for Kenyans as well. And this is what has been absolutely captured by Victor inside the Star this morning. And you have also Tom inside the People Daily, and this is what he's drawn for you. Read carefully before answering. And this is DCJ, and of course you know the controversy. Which of the following is true? Of your graft case troubles, bank client in a deal gone sour, government's threat of we shall revisit, succession, all the above. Those are your editorial cartoons. Right, make sure you grab a copy of the dailies for these stories as well. But we have the highlights for you. Let's see what is at issue. Bungoma High Court slams the brakes on the 16% VAT on fuel. Bobby Wine tells Washington of his ordeal in Ugandan jail. And soldiers sentenced to jail for murder and rape in 2016 hotel raid in South Sudan. Now, autopsy results for slain Rongo University student Sharon Otieno will be released today after both the government and private pathologists concluded the postmortem on her body. Yesterday at Rachonyo District Hospital, one of the main suspects in the murder remains in police custody. At the same time, the university fraternity led by the Vice-Chancellor, Samuel Gudu, is demanding justice and calling on the police to be swift with investigations.
Michael Oyamo, the man at the center of Sharon Otieno's murder mystery, will remain in police custody after the investigators successfully moved the court to detain him further. The police told the court that they are still conducting investigations and will wish to have the suspect in custody for that duration. The court will, however, hear the case on Monday before deciding whether to release Oyamo or not. In the meantime, investigations into the cause of Sharon Otieno's death was carried out this afternoon at the Rachonyo District Hospital. The post-mortem was done in the presence of family and government pathologists and witnessed by the relatives. The immediate cause of her death were established as wounds in her body, but this will be conclusively stated when the results are released tomorrow to the family and the media. Sharon's body was discovered yesterday morning at Kodera Forest after allegedly being abducted together with a Daily Nation newspaper reporter who escaped from the abductors. Today, the students of Rongo universities were more calm, but the administration was speaking.
What has happened to Beryl has given us a bit of sorrow, and at the end of it, we pray and believe that those who abducted Beryl will be caught up with, and the law takes its full course.
The Vice-Chancellor urged the police to conclude the investigations without delay. In the meantime, the homicide squad sent to Homa Bay from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations continue with their probe. Governor Bado, who has been linked to the murder, has however dismissed those reports and claims, urging the police to conduct their investigations.
Now, until 3 weeks ago, national journalist Barack Odor was just following up a story of Love Gonsaro. A former civic leader in Homa Bay contacted him, telling him he had a story about a relationship involving Migori Governor Okoth Obado and 26-year-old Sharon Otieno. Barack Odor reveals the finer details of a kidnap incident that ended up with a death and how he escaped by a whisker.
Came to know Sharon was about 3 to 4 weeks ago. That one could qualify to be a month ago. I was in my workstation within Homa Bay town. This particular person called Lawrence Muller. Lawrence Muller is a former MCA of Kanyadoto. Kanyadoto is a ward within Homa Bay County. He came and told me that he has a friend who wants my help as a journalist. This is the first day I interviewed Sharon. On this day I took several of these photos, and I took photos of WhatsApp conversations. So I asked the lady again, so you've brought all this, you have all this evidence. When did the governor supported you last financially? Because you claim the governor has abandoned you. She told me about 2 to 3 weeks ago, the governor gave me about 100,000 shillings. Then I told her, then the governor has not abandoned you, because if somebody gave you 300,000, if somebody gave you 100,000 about 2 to 3 weeks ago, how does that one now result to abandonment? She said, no, you do not understand how the governor was treating me. This matter of 100,000 and what was nothing. I could get any amount I wanted from the governor. I could even cheat him, I'm sick. He could give me even 200,000 to 300,000. She played for me a recording. The recording was between the governor and her. They were speaking in vernacular. The governor was pleading with her to do an abortion. And she was hesitant. The governor was telling her, no, if you want to be a good girl, you should just do what I've told you. I'm going to give you money to ensure that you have done abortion. You know, I'm a big person. I cannot endure such kind of shame. Somebody called me around 10. The person identified himself as the governor of Migori. I asked him, where have you gotten my number? He told me, see, I've gotten your number from my friend. Then I asked him, are you aware of this lady called Sharon? He told me, yeah, I know her. Sharon claims that she's pregnant because of you and you've abandoned her. She told me that that is a matter I can neither agree or deny. He told me that particular lady wants to blackmail me with the pregnancy matter. And so because of that, all this matter you will be dealing with through my personal assistant. Sharon told me that the governor of Migori, Okoth Obado, through his personal assistant, Michael Oyamo, wants to meet us. We went with Sharon to Rongo Town. On reaching Rongo Town, I suggested that we have a meeting at a hotel called Grasha. Then we saw two men standing by the roadside. Sigari ka park sideways. Venye amefungua tu mlango hivi, mtu mmoja akaingia pali pake venye alikaa next to Sharon. Mtu mwingine akakuja akanishongeza forcefully hivi, akafunga mlango, gari ikatoka. Gari ikatoka few meters, ndio akasema, they started with me ati, funga simu yako. These guys had weapons. And the other guy who was sitting next to Sharon was asking her, how have you known this guy? And the co-driver was saying, you guys have ever wanted to see the governor. We are taking you to see him. You do not need to get worried. Those ones were the last conversations before I jumped out of the moving car. When the vehicle went some meters, they stopped. The two people who came was this person who was next to me. Alitoka nje na yule co-driver. Yule jamaa alikuwa na Sharon ni kama alibaki tu na yeye kwa gari. They came running towards me. Alafu nikamka ndio nikakimbia. I thought they could not execute her. Huh?
Also, Robert Changuli will be telling his chilling story as well. The Ugandan pop singer turned opposition member of parliament, who is better known as Bobby Wine, has asked the U.S. government to withhold military aid to Kampala until the government of President Yoweri Museveni reforms its human rights record. Changuli asserts he was tortured after he was detained along with dozens of other people when opponents of Museveni pelted a convoy of the president and his security officers with stones. Chiangulanye Shuse arrived in the United States last weekend after authorities in Uganda, an ally of the West, which straight, it zigs and zags. And today we want to really talk about interruptions and how you can deal with life's interruptions. Earlier on, we had actually alluded to that particular advertisement by Nike that has really sparked a lot of controversy, right? When you have such a curveball, then as an organization, how do you deal with it, right? Is it just, of course, they knew the flag it will draw, I should say, and people have really reacted. And we want to talk about even our personal lives. How do we deal with interruptions when we have everything laid out for the year, and then, you know, things just go down the tubes? How do you deal with that? When you have your future, you know, well laid out for you, and you see this is the trajectory of my life, and things just happen, you know. Right now, you might be watching me this morning, and you've woken up, right, on the other side of the bed, where your partner is no longer there, right? Life has a way of just throwing curveballs along our path. You've lost your job, and you're wondering, where should I head right now? I mean, what really is a future holding for me? This life's interruption. You've lost a baby. Of course, you're expecting one, but right now you can't be holding that particular baby. Then how do you deal with that? This is what we want to discuss with our panelists this morning, who will just give us sort of a pick-me-up talk this morning to encourage someone who is down in the dumps this morning. Allow me to introduce to you, I've done that earlier with Dr. Vincent Ogutu, who is a Vice Chancellor of Strathmore University. Also, we have with us as well this morning Dr. Cesar Mwangi, who is the Executive Director of Center for Personal Leadership, also a visiting lecturer at Strathmore University. We have with us as well Trufosa Kwaka, who is the Principal of St. Paul's University, Nairobi campus. Also, we do have with us as well Peter Ndeng, who is a leadership coach and also a writer, author, and a consultant. We want just to discuss this briefly. Then we'll walk over to the lectern to encourage Kenyans this morning who are feeling sometimes depressed because also being settled with so much, taxes all over, and we wonder, where is the country headed to, right? Why are we saddled with all this burden that sometimes we cannot really carry? So let's get talking. You can hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. Maybe we could just lay the groundwork and just begin there. We started with you, Dr. Vincent Ogutu, but allow me also to introduce Dr. Cesar Mwangi. Dealing with life's interruption. Of course, this is a very wide topic, and I look forward to see how you will slice it yourself this morning. Right. You can just give us a snippet of what you're going to tell us this morning, briefly.
Yeah. Dealing with life's interruptions, I think you need to focus on one thing. One, that you did not apply to be born, and you are simply a creature,
yes,
not a creator. Mm-hmm. So you will never always be in control of what happens.
Yes.
And once you understand that, you will be able to handle what comes along the way, because again, you are not in control of what happens. There are many things which are beyond your control. Mm-hmm. So I'd like just to say that really, that's life. That's the way it is. Mm-hmm. We don't script it, we don't design it.
Yes.
And we've just got to face it headlong as best as we can. Mm-hmm. Most important, understanding who you are and what is your purpose in life. Mm-hmm. And then go for that purpose. Mm-hmm. Then you'll handle anything that comes along the way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Trufosa, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you, and you too. I had a conversation last week, and we were talking about milk with a friend of mine. And she comes from a pastoral community, and we just started talking about milk, and I asked her, so how do you deal with milk? Because she says, you know, I never put water in my milk when I'm making tea.
I'm sorry to butt in, Trufosa. I think your mic has an issue. I'll try and sort it out, right? But in the meantime, I can get to hear from also Peter Ndeng, and good to see you.
Thank you, Debarl.
Right.
It's good to be back. This is a really interesting subject, and I'm also evolving with how I handle this issue of interruptions.
Yes.
You know, as a motivational speaker, I used to always tell people to, you know, rise to the occasion, or, you know, be strong, and, you know, just respond to things in a positive way. And I came to a place where I realized sometimes there are interruptions that are small. Some interruptions, like somebody stands you up for lunch, you know, you can deal with that. Mm-hmm. There are some really devastating interruptions in life. And you need to to understand it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel let down. It's okay to feel devastated and feel the reality of it. But then it is not okay to stay there. I think the issue here is, what do you do then? And that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight, when I have my opportunity.
Okay, fantastic. So I think we just head over there to have you give your talk on the lectern today, because Pete, you're actually near the lectern. We'll begin with you. So you know the drill. I know Tufosa knows the deal as well, how we normally do it, the rules of engagement. I have my yellow card. Don't get stalked by it when I raise it, because you have more time. So when you see the red card is when now you should be winding up. Then I will toll the bell when you go way over the time that you've been allocated. But let's just begin with Pete Ndeng, who's on the lectern right now. Pete, you know your camera. Just get to encourage Kenyans who are feeling down in the dumps today and how they can deal with their lives. Interruptions.
Okay, well, good morning. This subject of interruptions, I reflected on last night when Debarl told me that this is the subject we would be dealing with. And I began to play with different words, and I began to land on the word unexpected. Because interruption actually implies that you were going somewhere. If you were going to Nakuru, then you discover that there's a roadblock. That is an interruption to your journey. You had planned to be there in 2 hours. Now it looks like it could be 3 or 4 hours because of something that you did not see coming. Life actually is a series of unexpecteds. We wake up in the morning and we make assumptions. Assumptions on past experience. We make assumptions that when I go downstairs, if you have an upstairs, to have my breakfast, the food that I left there last night will be there. You make an assumption that when I leave my house, I will lock the door with what? With a key that was sitting inside a drawer where it usually sits. We make assumptions about who we are, what we expect from people. We make assumptions about what to expect of life. And yet we discover that life doesn't always give you what you expect. These unexpecteds you could call them as the interruptions that we must learn to deal with. Not long ago, I was talking with a friend who just actually had a baby. Now, somebody giving birth to a baby is a very joyous occasion. It's supposed to be a moment of, enlightenment, people coming to celebrate. This particular woman, from the time the baby was born, saw and could see that this child had some issues. As a matter of fact, when I saw the baby, I saw immediately that this child was severely disabled. And what I expected, and this certainly is something that she did not see coming, she had built herself up to the moment of having her first child and was delivered what I thought was a blow. I could not believe her response. First, she was sad, but then she said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, God in his sovereignty chose me to be the custodian of this bundle of humanity. Saw that she actually was a privileged person that would be chosen to take care of somebody with such challenge. Why God, as she understands God, would do that was beyond her. But she took it as something that she would turn around and make good of. We are going to be let down by many things because we assume that the people that we have entrusted things to will uphold that trust. In fact, people will let you down. Your government will let you down. We're going to get up today to go somewhere. You're going to discover that what you banked on is not going to come through. What are you going to do about it? There are always manner of ways to respond to this, and one of those is just to moan and to complain. You can sit down and say, I intended to do this, I wanted this to come out, it didn't come out, woe is me, life is not good for me. Or you can choose to take a different course. I once read an article that was really powerful, and I'd recommend it. You can Google it. I can't even remember the author. It was an article that was talking about the power of reflective living. You know, when we run through life from disappointment to disappointment or from one challenge to another, sometimes we come to a place where we are so exhausted that we cannot even make meaning out of life. Reflective living implies having the ability to step back and to weigh the things that are happening to you. Because some of the so-called interruptions, some of the unexpecteds are not because there's a force out there that's working against you. Sometimes it's just that we didn't plan properly. And then sometimes we go through some of these things and we go to the next one without pausing to learn what lessons there may be embedded in those interruptions or unexpected occurrences. Take time to reflect. Take time to look within, to look back at where you're coming from. Take time to look ahead and have a plan, because without a plan, there is no interruption. One example I'll give and then I'll close. The other day I was calling somebody because I wanted to meet with him. And I said, can we meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock? The guy says, why don't you call me in the morning and we can decide, you know, where we are. I said, no, I need to know, is 9 o'clock better for you or 10 o'clock? And what he was reflecting was a lifestyle that so many people have, that yes, there are interruptions and unexpecteds, but there are winds that are coming and shaping who they are rather than them having a direction, so that when the winds come, they're able to deal with the wind but not lose sight of where they were going. Know where you're going, have a plan. Expect the unexpected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is, of course, Peter Ndeng, and he says that life is a series of unexpected. Are you living a reflective life so far? And you know, of course, this has been also the mainstay of the military. They have to reflect sometimes. They normally use the 3 R's, right? The strategy. They retreat, then they recoup, and then they relaunch. So are you doing also those? Sometimes you need to retreat from your life, right? And the circumstances, you just try and recoup after reflecting, then you relaunch, just to garner strength as well. We have also on the lectern right now the Vice Chancellor of Strathmore University. Vincent Ogutu is a full-time lecturer. Also, he at the Strathmore University, he self-identifies as a teacher because he sees teaching as an opportunity to wake people up to their true potential and to challenge them to use their talents to make a difference in society. Let's just hear from him this morning. Just give us a slice of what you think, or just to encourage someone also on dealing with life's interruptions. 5 minutes.
Good morning, Kenyans. Happy to be with you again, as always. This is a wonderful topic. I was thinking about the things that interest us in sports. We've just come out of the World Cup, and for several weeks, that was all we could think about. And on the sports scene right now in Kenya, we're looking at the big fight that will take place tomorrow between Zarika, our local champion, who is the belt holder, and the challenger Mercado from Mexico. So boxing will be all the rage this week. And a concept that came to my mind that's linked to this topic is the concept of being down but not out. Because in boxing, as you will remember, you can be hit so hard that you hit the floor, and then the umpire has to start counting 1, 2, 3. If they reach 10, then they'll say out. So meaning you're down and out. The fight is over. But quite often, and this happened even in the cases of some of the greatest fighters like Muhammad Ali, you see the man or the woman hit the floor and they start counting, and then the person gets up and continues fighting and falls again and gets up, continues fighting. And many times you see them actually winning. So meaning they were down but not out. So as we think about life's interruptions, I think we could use boxing as a metaphor for what we are facing. There's this goal that we're working towards. There's a prize that we're working for. We have a vision of how to get to that prize. We have this vision of what it looks like. We've figured out a path to get to it, and then something interrupts that plan. Something comes in the middle, and we find a trough, or we hit a bump, some kind of obstacle that prevents us from reaching that vision. Something interrupts that path that we had meticulously planned. And so how do we deal with it? What are we supposed to do? So I have two major ways of dealing with it. The first is how we look at it, how we interpret what is happening to us. So first of all, we might be thinking it's really huge. This obstacle, this thing that has happened is huge. Maybe it's not. You know how it is when you walk up to a wall and then you're staring at the wall because your nose and face are right up against it. It looks like an insurmountable wall. It's too big. But if you step back and you look at that same wall, it might be scalable. The sort of thing where you could just reach and climb over. So by just creating context, stepping back, you might see that maybe that problem is exaggerated. I'm thinking it's a huge problem, but maybe it's not. And one way to do that is to look at it in the context of a lifetime. How many times did we have a problem when we were kids in school and we thought it was the end of the world? When my dad or mom finds out what I did, that's the end of the world. But it wasn't. And here we are now, we're grown up. And that's such a tiny little problem in our life now because we're looking at it in the context of a lifetime. So if you step out away from the problem, maybe zoom out to your future and then look back into today, you'll see it's just one more problem, one of many problems that you will live to face and conquer. So it's not that big a problem. And then another way to look at the problem sometimes is maybe it's not permanent. Yes, it is a problem. Maybe it is a big problem. But hey, maybe it's not permanent. So it's an injury that you have in sport. But it's not permanent. You just have to treat it, accept it for what it is, not live in denial, and start tackling it. And to the extent that you actually recognize that it's not permanent, you will get the resilience to fight it and to keep going because the vision is intact. The path is actually intact. It's just that there's a temporary interruption. So think of it as temporary. And then in some cases, maybe it is quite a fatal interruption to that path. That path is no longer viable. In which case you ask yourself, but is the vision still viable? Are there other paths to that same vision? And if there are, then you're still in business. You can still reach your goals. You just have to do it a different way. Maybe the way you had meticulously planned is not going to work anymore. So go for a different path because quite often it is possible. Now this is the toughest thing, and Peter somehow alluded to it, where some problems are huge. You can't really do anything about it. In fact, Caesar also talked about it, that some problems, you have no control over, and there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe you're now blind, and it's permanent. You're not going to suddenly see again. So in that case, the question, and there's no pun intended here, is to change the vision. So that vision is not the only vision. It's not the only thing you can dream about. You might come up with other visions that are compelling, that are really interesting, that might even be bigger than the previous vision. So you have to free yourself so that you're not just wedded to one vision. Then the second and last biggest thing that I wanted to talk about is getting help. Because, and even though Liverpool isn't my team, I'm a Man United fan, but I kind of like the Liverpool tagline where they say you will never walk alone. So a lot of times we're down and feeling almost like we're out because we think we're walking this journey alone, when in fact we have friends, we have family, we have ultimately God who will help us. And so in conclusion, I'll tell you, it's not about the goals, the small little goals and victories that we set for ourselves as milestones down here. Life is a journey. It's about living the journey, and it's about enjoying that journey, and we're going to be rewarded for how well we fought, not for which victories we got down here. Thank you.
Right. It is how well you will fight and not for the victories that you get down here. That is Dr. Vincent Ogutu, the Vice-Chancellor of Strathmore University. So you could be down, but definitely you are not out. We will also hear from our panelists when we circle from the other side of a break. Up next, we'll hear from Dr. Caesar Mwangi, right, on also his slides on dealing with life's interruptions. Don't go away. Hit us on Twitter, hashtag AMLiveNTV is our Twitter handle. AMLiveNTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live, and we continue with our conversation on dealing with life's interruptions. And of course, we had earlier listened to some of our panelists giving us also their way or their view on how they can deal, or you can deal with what really curveballs life throws at you. Dr. Mike Maddock once said that, you know, you have to plan, right, on how you can actually plan on your happiness, because pain automatically has a way to schedule itself in your life. So right now we want to hear from Tufosa Kwaka. He is the principal of St. Paul's University Nairobi campus. She's up now on the lectern, and she's going to give us a slice of how she can deal with life's interruption, or help you on how you can deal with life's interruptions. Tofoso?
Good morning. Previously, I was just slightly interrupted, so I began to think, my goodness, I'm experiencing right here. I was telling a story about milk, and a friend of mine was telling me that in her home, she's from a pastoralist community. They do not have a word for spoiled milk because milk never gets spoiled. It only changes form, and you change its use with that. And so I was reflecting about that, and I remembered about the movie Kung Fu Panda. And so there's disruption in the kingdom, and there's a threat that is envisaged. And Po, who's one of the main characters in the movie, is chosen somehow to be the one to fight off this enemy. And Po then goes under the master to learn what are some of the possible ways they could deal with this impending disruption. And one day Po decides to give up because it's too much. And he says, maybe I should quit and go back to making noodles. And Ugwe, his master, says, quit? Don't quit. Noodles, not noodles. You're too concerned about what was and what will be. You see, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called present, as in a present, a gift. And it's true that life interruptions, many times, when it's a good thing, we are happy and it's okay. But there are many times life interruptions come with a lot of pain. And it brings in us a fear because we long for what we knew yesterday, and we fear for what we don't know coming tomorrow, and we wonder, how will we cope? What will we do? The truth is, the age we live in is an age of disruption. Everything is disrupted from what we ever knew. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether it's the education sector, the financial sector, politics. Every day there's some disruption of one kind or another. So what ought we to do? I just want to share 3 C's that I thought of. The first one is control. Yes, Pete alluded to the fact that we do need to plan, but many times it will not go as planned. Plans many times are good because they guide us, they give direction, but there are times when you need to take that plan and actually leave it alone, because you won't always be in control of how things will go. The second, and so when you realize that, then it helps you to let go. You loosen up. You loosen up and you kick off your shoes and say, you know what? Let's live life. But the second one is what I call calligraph, from calligraphy. Calligraphy stands for beautiful handwriting. It's an artistic way of writing. And calligraphy, we use it when we want to write something so that the bearer or the person who the recipient appreciates not only the content, but also appreciates the beauty of how it is written. Life will throw you seasons, and you need to live in the seasons that life brings you. You calligraph it by bringing the beauty in every season. There's a time for everything. And therefore, in every season that life brings, you need to bring out the beauty. For example, when, I'm remembering when I first had a child, and Pete alluded to having children. My first daughter, we were all happy that, I have a baby. But the first few months of having a baby is not joy. I remember telling a friend, no, this is not a bundle of joy. I was struggling to adapt to my season. So I like to say, and now I have learned that even with the other children and with the life seasons, that live in your season. I'm reminded of Bright Wire. Bright Wire got an accident and she became paralyzed. But right now, Bright is in her season. What does she do? Championing road safety globally. Thirdly is center. You need to realize what is the center of your life. What is the most important thing? We know and we've been told stories of when people are about to die, they begin to regret of some of the things that they thought were so important, and now they realize that those are not as important as they were. So find a purpose, find a new meaning for life. I'm thinking about Teresa Njoroge, who started Clean Start. Teresa was a banker, and one day she's imprisoned for a crime she never committed. But as Teresa comes out of prison, what happens? She's turned that around and is now part and has started an organization, Clean Start, where she helps those who are leaving prison and those who are in prison in reintegration and getting life skills. So what has she done? She has a new center and a new purpose for living. Therefore, as I conclude, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. Let's use our present. Thank you.
Right. Yesterday is history. Today is a mystery. Right? But today is a present, you said? Right. I hope I didn't get it mixed up. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much to Fosa. And of course, she's spoken very glowingly on a lot of issues as far as dealing with life interruptions is concerned. Life will throw you seasons, but how are you living in these seasons? And what beauty are you bringing out from these particular seasons that life has thrown your way as well? What is the center of your life right now? What do you have control? Are you also making the beauty through calligraphy, as she says, out of your seasons, right? Because we are in the age of disruptions. Thank you very much to Fosa. We have right now Dr. Caesar Mwangi, who's up on the lectern as well. He's the Executive Director of Center for Personal Leadership, and is going to speak to us as well on this particular topic, dealing with life's interruptions. Dr. Caesar.
Thank you. Good morning, Kenyans. Good morning this beautiful Friday morning. Despite the VAT increase, let us be happy. Things will work out, don't worry. That's an interruption. This is one of the major interruptions going on right now. The VAT increase and the risk of prices going up, and I think they started going up. Fuel shortages, etc. My dear friends, this morning I want to just share with you some of the things that I reflected on yesterday on this topic of interruptions. And if you may allow me, I think I'd like to share a couple of stories that relate to interruptions and the lessons I've learned from them. The first quick story is about a very wonderful friend of mine. I'll call him Tony because I suspect that a number of people may know him, and I do not want him to feel that I've violated his privacy. But Tony was a good friend of mine, and we were together in a certain church where we were going together, and he was one of the people who used to read during the Mass in the church. So we're in this ministry of proclaiming the word in the church. And one day I got a call that my friend Tony had gone for a hike in Ngong Hills, and he had been attacked by thugs. And after those thugs attacked him, he lost one of his eyes and he became blind in one eye. So I got the call and I went to see him at the Aga Khan Hospital. And I remember meeting him and he was very jovial. He said, "Caesar, I'm so happy to see you. I thank God I've still got one eye. I can still see you." And he was very positive at that time. He had a major interruption in his life. He had to be hospitalized and he lost one eye, but he was positive about it. I believe it was 6 months later when I got another call that my friend Tony was on Namanga Road at night. People laid nails on the road and they got a puncture, and when they got out to fix the puncture, he was attacked by thugs again. Sadly, he lost the other eye. And I got this call that Tony is back in hospital and I need to find my way there to go and see him. And I remember going to that hospital room and Tony was blind. And I remember what Tony told me. He said, "Caesar, I can hear you. Yes, I've lost my eyesight, but I can still hear my friend's voice." This was one of the hugest interruptions any human being could ever get. But here was a man who had chosen to recognize what he has rather than what he has lost. This has been one of the biggest lessons for me when it comes to interruptions, my experience with my friend Tony. Soon after that, Tony had a girlfriend. They were engaged before he got blind, and Tony called us for his wedding. And I can tell you, I went for that wedding and I knew what true love was all about, because here was a girl who had accepted that despite her boyfriend being blind, she was going to get married to this man because she knew he was a good man. I can tell you that's one of the weddings I can say there was true love. And I remember feeling a tear of joy in my eyes that day when I experienced this. And soon after that, I was driving along Gong Road and I saw Tony and his wife. Tony was blind, his wife was leading him by the side of the road, and she was pregnant or expecting a child. So beautiful. And today as we speak, they live together as husband and wife, as a family with their child. Huge interruption, but life moves on. And I'd really like to encourage anybody by this story that you can have huge interruptions and still move on. The second story, my dear friends, I'd like to share with you very quickly is a story which I love to read in the Old Testament about a gentleman called Joseph, who had a huge interruption in his own life when his own brothers, who hated him, decided to get rid of him. And they decided to kill him. And by the grace of God, they decided, no, let's not kill him, let's sell him off as a slave. And this young man was sold off as a slave by his own brothers to some traders. And he ended up in a far-off land in Egypt. And while in that land, he went through a lot of difficulties, huge disruption to his life. The greatest disruption anybody can accept is to be sold by his own family members to become a slave. But this young man had accepted, moved on, and ended up doing very well in that foreign land, to the point that one day his own brothers, who had got rid of him, had to come and seek a favor from him. And the young man actually forgave them. He forgot the past and embraced them. Beautiful story, which for me is a lesson on disruption, because it tells you that there are some things that can happen to you, my dear friends, but they are happening for a much greater good than you can ever imagine. And this classic story of Joseph tells you that, yes, you need to put yourself in that frame of mind that you may not understand the suffering you're going through right now. You may not even want it. You may even wish that it could end immediately. You may even wish that you are never born. But my dear friends, you do not know that in the greater scheme of things, personally I believe there is a creator, God himself, who knows why things happen the way they do. And there is always in his mind a greater good that may come out. And this is what I call faith. So in that disruption, that disruptive situation that you're facing, have some faith. Things are going to turn out unimaginably much better than you could ever imagine at this point in time. And the story of Joseph gives me that lesson. The third and final story is a history story. I love to read history. And one of the histories that I love to go through is the American history. And there is one president in America. His name was Theodore Roosevelt. History will tell you that Theodore Roosevelt is the only American president that was elected 4 times in a row. In 4 different elections. There's never been another. Yet, Theodore Roosevelt was a cripple at a young age. He was crippled. He was in a wheelchair. Many people may not know this, but he was one of the most loved American presidents in the line of presidents that they've been. And one of the stories I love in history is the story of Pearl Harbor. And I'm going to be very quick on this because it has taught me a certain lesson on disruption. America was bombed by the Japanese in 1941, December 1941, suddenly bombed without provocation in Pearl Harbor. And they lost thousands of American soldiers at that time. And Theodore Roosevelt was the president at the time. He called a meeting of his generals. And he asked them, the army general, we've been bombed without provocation. We have to do something. And he asked the army general, what do you think we should do? We cannot just stand by and watch. The army general said, Mr. President, I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do. We are not prepared. Our army cannot deal with this provocation. He asked the Air Force general, what can we do? The Air Force general said, our planes are not equipped to fight back against the Japanese. They would get back to us right into Chicago if we tried. He asked the Navy, what can we do? The Navy said, we've lost our biggest battleship. Our soldiers, we cannot fight back. There's nothing we can do. Remember, this is a cripple. He looked at these generals and he told them, I'll never forget the quote. He said to them, It is unfortunate when I see fear in the face of grown men, in the face of provocation. I do not know why God placed me on this wheelchair. I do not know why God placed me on this wheelchair. But it is moments like this that we have got to show that what looks impossible is possible. And President Roosevelt, that day, for the first time in so many years since he became a cripple, he decided to stand up from his wheelchair. And he stood up before these men and said, "Don't tell me it is impossible. Find a solution. We've got to deal with this issue." What that taught me from that story from history is that, yes, you may have some serious challenges, you may have some issues, but in the greater scheme of things, it is possibly God giving you a chance to prove that some things that seem impossible are possible. I want to encourage you, Kenyans, despite the disruptions in your lives, always remember that there is much more that you can do. Thank you.
Always remember there is much more that you can do. What are some of the moving stories we've heard this morning from Caesar Mwangi, right? Quite compelling. And of course, the story of Tony, which is truly encouraging. And I remember a quote by Helen Keller that says that the only thing worse than being blind is having sight, but no vision, right? And we know Tony has no sight, but he has a vision of his life. So are you truly embracing the seasons of your life that we've had also from True Forza, right? Are you mapping out your life in the way that you know you should, but still you know I'm also having a contingency plan if these interruptions will come my way? We want to just sit down with our panelists and discuss. And also, I want you to drive this show with me. You can call in and tell us how you're dealing with life's interruptions wherever you are. You might be in a wheelchair right now and you're wondering, is this it, right? Am I just batting my head on the wall? Why should I be here, right? Maybe also you can just hear us this morning. You can't see, right? We're here also to encourage you as well. We have also tweets here. I'll just read one or two before we continue with the conversation with our panelist, Dada Power. She's saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. Learn to live in the now, quoting that particular quote that we had from Tufosa. Quite a quote also Jeremiah Karuki says from Tufosa Kwaka, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. I want to take that gift with both my hands and embrace it wholly with my mind and positive attitude. Quite provocative and inspiring. We have Abdallah Dambo saying, leadership should never be about what others can do for you. That's explanation, not leadership. Leadership is about serving those you're leading without an expectation to receive back. Also, we have Jacob Abere Mtalala saying that life interruptions is part of portals in human social life, and it pulls graph back and acceptance. Recovery of it needs resilience and determination. Also, we have Stephen Muye saying, if your mind is not locked in to a meaningful purpose, then you'll keep getting derailed by these interruptions. And Samora Mashal saying, and is it okay, he asks questions, to allow your friends, leaders to ruin your future? That is a question that is coming from Samora Mashal as well. So how are you dealing with your interruptions? Kind of let us hear, and we'll love to get encouraging, or to get us talking and encourage one another through these conversations that we're having this morning. Let's just go back to our panelists today, and we begin with where we started. This is Peter Ondeng, and you talked about reflective living, and it seems in the hurly-burly of life, I should say, the humdrum that we are normally in, there's no time to reflect. We're sort of in a grinding mill. The only time that you have is sleeping time sometimes, even time for family. So how can we try and slice in a little bit of time where we can reflect, and how pivotal is it to have this moment of reflections in your life?
Debarl, I think it's a fallacy to say that we don't have time to reflect. It's probably more accurate to say I don't make time to reflect. Life really takes meaning when you're able to see it in perspective. We're able to look back, look within, look ahead, and I dare say look up. Because in like you said, the hurly-burly rush of life, things mixed together becomes like a soup. You know, sometimes it's one crisis to the other. Sometimes it's one interruption to another. And a life that does not have moments of reflection is going to be a life that does not build on lessons of experience. And I think that's what I always encourage, and it's something I've tried to do myself, that taking time, whether it's early in the morning every day, also setting aside a day in the week when I pull back, I shut off my phone and allow myself to not only plan but also look back and figure out what is it that I'm doing, why am I here, and am I on the right track? So reflection is so important because it cushions you against these interruptions, these unexpected, because life is going to keep throwing at you the unexpected, and it's really important that we don't just get hit by these things and never make meaning out of them. That's why I really underscore the importance of reflective living.
Right. Let's just continue also with Dr. Vincent. You could be down, but you're not out, right? And how do you look at it when you're really down? How do you look at it? Because these are some of thoughts that you wanted us to really peg on. How do you look at it? Go for a different path. But what if you don't have a path at all? What if you don't think that you have any other solution? Your back is against the wall.
So that's when you have to ask yourself, ultimately, what is the meaning of life? And has that meaning been taken away from me by this particular interruption? And you will find that, in fact, it hasn't been taken away from you. That meaning is intact. You were born as a daughter or son of God, and that has not changed. God still loves you. This is still a finite period of time that you're going to be here, and then you have eternity forever and ever and ever, and none of that has changed. So to the extent that your ultimate purpose is still intact, these are just blips, like tiny little interruptions. It's when we make them the ultimate goal of our existence. Without this, my existence means nothing. That's when we fall into desperation. But as long as you realize it's just part of the journey, it's just one of the things I'm meant to overcome or to live with, then I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting in this life, which is becoming a better person, serving others, inspiring others. And you can do that even if in the middle of difficulty, even without getting what the world defines as success, you are actually making progress towards your ultimate destiny, which is to enjoy heaven forever and ever. So a lot of the things that we put as ultimate are not. They are just temporary, they are finite. The ultimate reasons for our existence are always intact, and we can always draw hope and motivation from that.
And to Foster, you say, of course, we're in the age of disruptions. Aside from what we normally know about digital disruption, that has been the buzz. But truly, as they said, and I mentioned earlier, that we should learn to plan for our happiness, because pain has a way of scheduling itself in our lives as well. So how do we plan for pain? It is so hard to plan for pain because it has a way of scheduling itself. But it seems in life we cannot, and we've learned even from some of our leaders here in the country, people who prepare for death, building or digging their graves and cementing their graves and apportioning some stash of money for the burial ceremony as well. And in that epoch of time, that was very taboo. That how can you even be talking on a morbid subject like death itself? But should we also prepare for these pains in lives and interruptions in our lives that sometimes, yes, we don't know what will happen, but it is ready. I don't want to saddle my family with so much burden of my burial. Some people say, why can't you also cremate me? Please don't go through the harrowing torture of, preserving my body and going through all that ceremony. Talk to us.
I think, excuse me, you must prepare. So for the things that you can prepare, for example, I think preparing for your death, because death is coming. You just don't know when. That's the only thing you don't know. You have no control over the timing. So preparing for it. And you're not really preparing for it as a person if it's like death. You're really preparing for those you're leaving behind. So, but for the pain that you can see, I think you can already begin to imagine. For example, if you're running a business, you do know that it won't always go smoothly. There will be some elections in some year, and you do not know how long that election period will be pulled. So what will you do during that season? But I think for me, the important thing is not just preparing, but how you go through that pain. So that, for example, if somebody is mourning, we don't expect that person who has been bereaved to celebrate and to be singing and to be joyful. We expect that they will do what it takes to mourn. Now, you can mourn singing. We're not saying you cannot sing, but you will not throw a party for us so that you can mourn. It will be a different kind of party. So to live within your season. But the other thing that Pete mentioned is that you should not stay there forever. Because remember, seasons come and seasons go. So you prepare for the pain knowing that it will come and begin to ask yourself, so what good thing can I get out of it? How can I recreate it? How can we make it beautiful? So that although we are going through pain, something good can come out of it. Living in the season, but also beginning to draw out some good things. Pete also mentions about reflections. I like that. Because one of the good things about going through pain is you reflect. You reflect and say, for example, if it's a sickness, you'll say, maybe I need to change my lifestyle. That is, you're making something beautiful out of a bad situation. So preparing for the pain, but also living in the pain and not staying there, moving on and getting something out of it. Yeah.
Right, let's get back to you, Caesar Mwangi, because I can see Elijah here is really inspired by your story. He says, good morning. The story by Tony, one of your panelists, is quite inspiring. I am one going through hell, but where the name of God is mentioned, hope surfaces in me and my life turmoils. For somebody like Elijah, right? We don't know what sort of hell he's going through, but of course he can resonate with Tony in his life. And you've mentioned this many stories that we've had, even from President Roosevelt as well, who, when he was actually wheelchair bound, could actually stand up and say, nothing is impossible. Yeah. Talk to us and talk to many Kenyans who they feel like truly, I'm flailing my hands in the air, I'm giving up.
Yes. In fact, I get his difficult situation, and many people are in those difficult situations. There's something I normally refer to and is referred to often as a victim mentality. In a victim mentality, you find forces or makes the victim ask questions like, why me? Ask questions like, why now? And then come to the conclusion, this is unfair. And the victim gets stuck in that space. Rather than what I call a victor mentality, where you say, even this I can conquer. Right? That's what I call a victor mentality. Even this I can conquer. Because I am here for a purpose. And that purpose will not end until I exit this world. Okay? So there's always an opportunity to move from where you are to a better space. And I think that's the stories that I gave. You know, it could be a very, very, very difficult situation. But you've got to have the right software in your mind telling you, I'm not a victim. And even this I can conquer. I give you a simple example. And again, I go back to a little story. I was watching a movie called Invictus about Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was discussing with the captain of the South African rugby team. And he said, he told the fellow, there were times, Francois Pienaar was the captain of the rugby team. He told Francois, there were times when I was in jail when I didn't feel like waking up. I wanted to give up. It was too tough. But then I realized that the only reason I got up was because I had an inspiration. I had a big dream that inspired me. And whenever you feel so down, I suggest you search for that big dream that inspires you. And that big dream could be just that you want to educate your little child, your son or daughter, and see them through to become responsible adults. That could be the big dream. But look for something that inspires you. Or that big dream could be just that you want to help your parents in their old age and make sure they're as comfortable as possible and they're relying on you. Because that is what is going to inspire you to get up from that very difficult space you are at, where you are becoming a victim, and it will inspire you to do more because you can. And somebody said, if you can run, run. If you can walk, walk. If you can crawl, crawl. But just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
Yeah, just keep moving.
And I think also, is it who was mentioning about Liverpool? It is
Yeah.
you, the fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep on going.
Yeah.
Right? And we like that Johnny Walker,
Precisely.
you know, bantra. Keep
walking.
Keep
Yeah,
walking.
just keep walking, exactly.
Just keep
Yeah,
on walking. Life has a way of throwing
Yeah,
curveballs. Keep
yeah.
on walking even on the
Yeah,
curveballs as well.
exactly.
But how critical is it when you're making decisions, especially in times of depression, interruptions in your life? Because some people always make permanent decisions out of these interruptions, right? Because your judgment can get clouded. You don't see, you can't perceive things because the emotions are all over the place as well. Pete?
You know, Debarl, I don't want to downplay realities of life. And some things you can't plan around, because you know they come, they hit you in the face, and you just have to simply respond to it at that moment. But a life without a plan is much more devastated by a wind, an unexpected wind that comes in from the east and hits you, than one that is basically just going around in circles. So my reflection on this thing is, have a purpose. When you wake up in the morning, wake up with a purpose, knowing very well that you're going to be hit with things that you did not see coming. But don't wake up and say, let's flow with it and see where it takes us. Let's see how this weekend turns out. Without a purpose, it is very difficult sometimes to make sense of the shocks that come to our lives. Because when shocks come and you have a purpose, what you do is it forces you, first of all, to deal with the devastation or the interruption, but you then adjust your course, adjust your compass on how to get to where you want it to go. And I believe people who are able to get ahead in life, in fact, I always say that leadership, good leaders, are defined not by the good times or when things are working, but when things are not working, or when things come that you didn't expect. Those are the reasons you hire a leader or you look for a leader who can help you navigate the unexpecteds, the storms. Yeah.
Right. So even, I think the famous Teddy Jackson, he's in the country, or he should be coming in the country, right? He said once, do not make permanent decisions out of temporary situations. Are interruptions temporary? Let's hear from Vincent.
So some interruptions are temporary. As I'd said, interruptions can look larger than life, and maybe they're not. Maybe it's an injury, you will get over it. You've lost a job, but there are other jobs that you can get. It's not the end of the world. It's just a temporary setback. I dare say actually most interruptions are temporary. Some are drastic and are permanent as far as that particular path is concerned. But you can always get on another path and still reach that vision. So don't think of it as fatal in the sense that I can't reach the vision anymore.
Yes.
All it means is that path has been stopped. Now I want to talk about this concept of turning lemons into lemonade, because a lot of times we just look at the negative. This has happened. But we don't see how we can add purpose to it. We can find purpose in the suffering itself. They say that you fall sick sometimes because you need to. Your lifestyle has been moving too recklessly, and you need to be reminded that you're mortal, that you need to take care of yourself, to take care of the important things. And so when you step back and ask yourself, okay, I'm here, I'm sick, I can't work, but maybe it's a reminder of what my lifestyle has been so far and the corrections that I need to make to my life. So that's turning lemons into lemonade. You don't have to just take the bitterness of the lemons. You can turn it into a sweet drink that's a lemonade. So let's be creative in how we look at these setbacks. So yes, I've lost this job, but maybe I can get a different job, which is a better fit, where I can achieve more, turning lemons into lemonade. So that's what we have to do. In terms of the ups and downs and making big decisions when there's an interruption, Dr. James Dobson advises against that. So he says, when you're on a high, don't make a life-changing decision. Like, oh, I love this person, let's get married. But you just met last week. Don't make a big decision when you're on a high. And when you're on a low and it looks like this is horrible, this is the end of the world, don't make a big decision like I'm divorcing or I'm quitting my job because of what happened today. Because a lot of times these are just temporary and you have to ride out that wave until you see what the even line is, and then you make a decision. So let it go through 1 or 2 cycles before you make up your mind and make a big life-changing decision.
Getting help also is one of the things that you've mentioned, so we shouldn't be really gun-shy of getting help. But we can actually drill deeper now, maybe to the family setting, where we have the husband and their wife, and you want to get help. She's supposed to be your encourager, you're the man, or vice versa. And you come home, or maybe you're in that situation where you know you've lost your job and you cannot really provide for the family, but the wife is really hard on you, right? You can come today with 50 shillings and tomorrow you can come with 100,000 shillings. But the wife shouldn't really butter you on the 50 shillings and question your masculinity, because this really happens in the family settings. How do you deal with interruptions? Because these are interruptions at the family settings, and people sort of, the dynamics of the family settings are really changed, and we don't know how to adapt. The man feels the insecurities are coming to the fore, that the woman is not respecting me as a man because I cannot really provide for the family. But do we define ourselves on those nuances, that I'm the provider, so you have to respect me? Talk to us, Professor, maybe from the lady's perspective, from the woman's perspective.
I think the unfortunate thing is that we peg our respect in marriage based on, or even love for that matter, based on what, on providence,
yes,
and so on. And I think that that's very unfortunate, because someone's ability to provide could change. For example, some people marry because, and they insist that, for example, the wife must iron their clothes. I'm just giving an example.
Yes,
I'm not saying ironing should not be done by the wife. I'm just saying that that's not the real reason why they got married in the first place to the man. So what about if this lady now gets to a place where she cannot health-wise be able to iron? Does the marriage cease? In the same way, even though we say that the man is the provider in many homes, or we expect that, what about if he comes to a place where he can't provide? Does the home cease and the marriage cease because of that? I think it's because the foundations then have been wrong. We need to shift that around. I think that when we say providence, we should say it is for the home. It doesn't matter whether it's the man or the woman who has brought it. It is, the home has been provided for. So the respect I give to my husband is not because he provides. I respect my husband because he is my husband. And he loves me not because I iron his clothes or make for him food, but he loves me because I am his wife. That is the first thing. The other things we do are then just the things that could be interrupted, because life has interruptions. So I think there it's the foundation that we got wrong. We need to change that around. But how do we deal with it? One, we must get help. Many people shy away from getting help. We do need to get help. So I would say to the wife out there who wants to bash the husband, don't bash your husband because of providence. Sit down with him and say, what can we do? How can we draw out, how can we make good of this situation? What beauty, how can we calligraph this? What else can you do? How can I support you? And husband, when your wife is giving you that advice, don't feel bad. That's why she came along to be with you. She came to be able to compliment you and to strengthen you. And who knows, out of something she will say today, affirming what you can do, you will actually be able to make this spoiled milk become very beautiful, lovely mala to drink today for the family.
Right. Of course, I want also to give maybe this opportunity for us to be winding up, because I know most of you have meetings. I've actually seen also Dr. Vincent's training at the list. She has a board meeting this morning. I had promised to release him much earlier, I think 15 minutes to time. So I'll give this opportunity. Also, Peter, I know you have a conference that you're leading this morning as well, just to encourage, look to camera 7 and encourage Kenyans who are feeling down in the dumps today, in that depression moment. Yes, we have someone saying, of course, this brings also seasons of depression, and some people cannot really come out from those moments as well. Just take your moment as you're winding up as well to just talk to Kenyans briefly. Which camera? Camera 7, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about the unexpecteds of life, we talk about the interruptions of life, the things that take us off our course. I begin by saying, let's come to terms with reality. If something bad has happened to me, don't gloss it over with positive thinking and don't deal with the emotions. Allow yourself to face the reality. If I am sad, say I am sad. If something bad has happened to me, allow yourself to live it out and understand it so that you can adjust yourself and be able to react to it correctly. Do not deny the reality. But one of the things that all of our panelists have been talking about here is that if you would take as almost like a philosophy of life that this too shall pass. This thing that I'm going through is not permanent. This thing is going to be something we will talk about one day. When we look through the rearview mirror, we will say, you know, there was a time. And these times come and they go. I believe that life without these interruptions and challenges would be a very unusual place. We set plans, and I hope you have a plan for today. I hope you woke up with an idea of what you want to achieve, but knowing that at 9 o'clock this morning, 10 o'clock this morning, something could and perhaps will happen that you didn't see coming.
Thank you.
Will you have the presence of mind to understand that that interruption, which could be you being fired from your job, to say that it has happened, I have reflected on it, I'm going to take time to adjust my compass and take a new direction.
Thank you.
So I wish you, and I wish all of us, a reflective life. And we're coming into the weekend, and I think a weekend is a good place to pause and say, where am I coming from? Where am I today? Where am I going? But for me, I always add a fourth one. Where is he pointing?
Right, where is he pointing? Right, maybe good question and a reflective moment over the weekend. A pause giver for you. Where is he pointing? Let's hear from Tufosa, your closing remarks briefly.
Life is full of seasons. Good seasons, bad seasons. But just like a fruit that is plucked out of season is very bitter, so it is when we don't live life within our seasons. But in every season, there is something good that can come out of it. So don't dwell on the bad. Go through the emotions like Peter said about the bad, but also don't stay there. Begin to look around and say, could there be another way of looking at it? Do I have a different center, meaning a value, a purpose for which I can live? Are my values the right ones, so that I stop looking at the temporary things, but look at enduring values? And then, what is this thing that has come, and what beauty can I get out of it? Remember, yesterday is gone, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is the present. Open up your present. Thank you.
Today is the present. Open up your present. King David said also that, yes, teach us, O God, to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Number of days, know our season, and how to discern what season we are in. Let's hear from Dr. Caesar Mwangi.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everybody that all of us are unique.
Camera 7.
All of us are totally unique, and we are created. The 7.5 billion people on this earth, all of us are unique. And therefore, each of us have a mission, a purpose in life. And that purpose involves living this world better than we found it. And if we can focus on a purpose that is beyond ourselves, despite whatever happens, despite whatever interruptions come our way, we focus on that inspiring purpose, that possibility that we are here for, then we shall never remain down. We keep on moving, and we just got to keep on moving and never give up, because there is a reason why we're here.
Keep on moving and never give up. Keep walking, as Johnny Walker, of course, they will say that particular advertisement. Let's hear from also Dr. Vincent Ogutu. Finally, your parting shot. Camera 7.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what my fellow panelists have said, which was great. Trufosa talks about living in the season. You don't determine the season. It comes at you, but it comes at you with a purpose, as Caesar is saying. So nothing is totally random. The reason why you're in that particular season today, it may be what you call a good season or what you call a bad season, is because you're supposed to get something out of it. So don't be totally wedded to one particular outcome, that is all that I have to get out of today. You could follow a different path. You could turn whatever is looking as a difficulty now into just a challenge. And we're supposed to rise above these challenges. They're supposed to make us better. Actually, we could never be better if we were not challenged and taken out of our comfort zone. So look at it positively, like this is an opportunity to change. And then in terms of never walking alone, think of what Paul says in his letters, that when I am weak, that's when I am strong. Why does he say that? He says at the moment when I seem to be down, when I seem to be weakest, that is the moment when I realize that my true strength is not in myself. It is in the one that I depend on. So looking up, as Peter says, looking up to the one who gives us that strength, who gives us that purpose, believing that there's a reason for even this, and that even this I shall overcome. And the moment you lean on the person who makes you all-powerful, then you become strong. So when I am weak, then I am strong. Remember, it's just a journey. It's just a game to become a better person, as Caesar says, and it is by embracing these difficulties, as Jeremiah Kariuki said in his tweet, it is by embracing these difficulties that we will actually become better people.
Thank you. I really want to thank you, Dr. Vincent Ogutu, the Vice Chancellor Designate, Strathmore University. Thank you for coming through and those encouraging words this morning. Also, Dr. Caesar Mwangi, who is Executive Director of Center for Personal Leadership. Thank you for coming through, visiting lecturer at Strathmore University as well. Thank you for coming through. Also, Trufosa Kwaka, who is the Principal of St. Paul's University Nairobi campus. Thank you for coming through. And Peter Ndeng, thank you for coming through as well, who is a motivational speaker, executive coach, and an author as well. Thank you. I apologize for inconveniencing some of you this morning, but I will wind up also with this particular tweets, just a few of them. Director Diana, before I wind up, Debarl, the panelists have helped so much. This is what Rumabonga is saying. The panelists have helped so much. I'm pressed down almost. A blood bro whom you slept with on the floor without beddings. God raised him to a level of MP, and he forgets the family completely. How can we come out of this pain, right? This is what he's asking today. Also, we have a governor, the dreamer, saying, in the real world as lived and experienced by real people, the demand for human rights and dignity, the longing for liberty and justice and opportunity, the hatred of oppression and corruption and cruelty is the reality. We have also CEO, Prof. Kiprono, saying disruptions at times bring depressions. Depression is a killer nowadays, but with hope there is life, there is light and life. We have as well Freddy here. He says quite inspiring. And we have, let me just read some of them here. Computer Doctors Limited, right? Says don't make life a changing decision when you are on a high or a low. Let it go through 1 or 2 cycles, quoting Vincent Ogutu. Also, we have Jasper here. When you are on a high or on a low, don't make big decisions. Never make permanent decisions on temporary situations. Of course, he's also put this up. Be happy, not because everything is good, but because you see the good in everything. And we can also read from Felix King is saying, oh, that lady is loaded with wisdom. All right, that is Trufosa as well. We want to thank you so much for your valued company. And this is the reason why Also, I wake up every morning, right, to just encourage someone, right? We'll not be speaking to a lot of you, but some of you that, just one of you. My philosophy is, yes, I leave the 99 like Jesus did, and I follow the one who is you in the morning to just get encouraged. Thank you very much. Remember, the good book says in Proverbs 4:18 that the life or the path of the righteous man, as I mentioned earlier, is like the first gleam of a dawn. It groweth brighter and brighter into a perfect day. So don't go away. Much more coming up also with Living With Us, talking about cultivating your creative talents. Just find out how an artist did that. That is on Living With Us.